So in a video not too long ago, we went over an enormous amount of certifications that Japan has, and some of those are very valuable in society, as in they help like getting into schools, getting jobs, or just supreme bragging rights or whatever, right? You can use them in a lot of different ways. Whereas there were some others that very specified, very specific situations that you'd use them, if at all. Some of them are just basically for yourself, and that's it. That's the end of it, which of course is fine. But when I was looking through all of the different kinds of tests that we had and the ones that my son is currently doing, um, when it came to the subject of Japanese, of course, the Kanji Kente seems to be the king of all the Japanese tests that over here, at least. There's maybe four or five others or total that they have here in Japan, including just like an overall Japanese ability test, a writing test, both brush and pen, and they have like an idiom test and things like that as well. But when it comes down to it, the one that is most valued in most places and I think is probably the most difficult overall as well, given even though it's just called the kanji test, it's really just a huge test of your vocabulary basically. So hey, can you quote the dictionary from memory in its entirety? This is kind of like where it heads in the end. Um, so anyway, there's a pretty clear king of what you want to prove your ability in Japanese in school here. When it comes to English, again, there's like again four or five different tests, but really there's only two big ones that people care about in general, and that's in general because there are tests that you might need for getting into universities overseas or something. Like I know you would need the TOEFL test um, for a lot of universities like Cambridge or whatever. Um, but in general, over here in Japan, it's either the Eiken, which is like the English test that everybody uses throughout school, which has multiple levels, or it's the TOEIC test, which is like, I think it's max score 990. I don't know why they couldn't have had just like one or two more questions to make it an even thousand, but you know, uh, people just take the test again and again, trying to get a higher score in that one. I don't really like the setup, to be honest, but it's one of the popular ones over here for whatever reason. I prefer the Aiken, just how it's set up with the leveling up system. That's what I prefer anyway. Personal preference, perhaps, but I like that you can pass something and then get to the next level by training harder rather than technically with the TOEIC, when you just have like a number score, you could, let's say you get 800 one time and you study really hard, and the next time you get 700 for whatever reason, and it feels like you've leveled down, if anything, which, yeah, this happens in life, of course. Usually not because you're studying hard, but I think being able to go through a lot of training and get some kind of recognition of that you have passed a certain level of knowledge or ability in something uh, is a much more motivational system, let's say. And then, okay, so those two of our subjects we've gone over, and then there's the math. And again, there's a few different ones here, but the only one that really seems to matter, as far as I've seen, is the Sansu Kente, which becomes the Sugaku Kente in the later ones. Is the same certification though. Just they kind of kind of changed the name. I mean, it's all, I guess, technically the Sugaku Kente, the mathematics certification. But as I said in one of the very earlier videos, people really like to differentiate between arithmetic and mathematics for whatever reason. So that's the big one there. And then when it comes to science, the one that my son just completed and got the pre-level 8 in, which is pretty cool, is the Rika Kente, which is like the science exam here. And I think there's some others in here as well, but um, they'd either be like super high level, uh, very specific specialized tests, or just kind of unknown, very small tests. So I think that this is probably the standard that we have right now, and I haven't seen anything so far that really rivals it well, anyway. So those are the four of the main subjects that we have in elementary school, or throughout school, I guess. And there is one other that is I guess you spend almost equal time to as the ones that we just went over, which is social studies. But there actually was a sort of overall social studies test some years ago. I think it went from level 8 to level 1, but that has since ceased to exist apparently, um, which I only learned recently. So I remember looking it up in the past when I was looking for what to do, but yeah, that ceased to exist recently apparently. And when I was looking for something to sort of level up my son's, or help my son level up his social studies abilities, the one that I actually came across that we ended up doing was this international uh, knowledge dissemination um, test here, where it's mostly about flags and then it goes into geography and everything as well. But the only issue I would have with this test, in terms of being um, like a social studies, an overall social studies test, is that it it really the flag tests and the world geography test, these are, I think, very good as they are, but there's not really anything that we have for Japanese geography specifically, for example, or for uh, Japan in general here. So, see on the screen we have the Russian test, the Indonesian test. There's like a Taiwanese, Malaysian, France, American, Thailand, Vietnam, Korea, and other tests that you can do that specify in countries as well. And the setup here is so that each type of test is basically 5 levels each. And I think this is actually a really good test. I really like how it's set up, but it is lacking in a lot of things that I think you would need to really say that you had the social studies ability that correlates well with what you would learn in school. And so I was looking at the other tests as well, and figured there's basically 5 different tests that you might consider when it comes to social studies. And social studies itself is kind of a weird um, area in school, because in elementary grades 1 and 2, it is it is actually life studies, so it's like mixed in with science basically, as well as just general things. And then in um, I think middle school, I think it's still social studies. I'll have to double check that. But once you get to high school, it separates into history and geography as a single category, and then civics as a single category. So each of these, I think civics might actually be an elective, or you can elect one of them when you get to high school. So it like uh, diverges once and then once again later. So And then I guess if you go to university for something like that, it might diverge even more. So it's a weird subject when compared to the others in school. Um, I mean, there's a few others, but of like the main ones, social studies is kind of one of the strangest ones to like place nicely somewhere. So, besides this lovely test here that we have, the international knowledge, the flag tests, and the geography tests, and there's also one for famous people, including both scientists and celebrities. We haven't taken any but the flag one yet, but besides that, I would say the other ones of value are the history test, the news test, the maps test, and there was one other. I'm trying to think, and the World Heritage test. So those four and this one, so five basically that really covers social studies. And the one that I think covers social studies most thoroughly is probably this news test here. So the news test, um, it is a 6 level test, I believe. So that is level 5, 4, 3, pre 2, 2, and 1. There might be a pre 1. I don't know. Let's see here. Actually, I don't think there is. So maybe if we click on this, yeah, there's no pre 1. So the it says here that that the level 5 and 4 you can elementary school kids can take, but I think it is more aimed towards middle school kids because even at the level 4 it already has a high school as um, people who are likely to take this test as well. If we go down a little bit, we can see how it works out. They want 70% to pass. Looks like each of these tests is going to have 40 questions, and they are all multiple choice, except for the level 1 is going to have some writing stuff. But level 5 through 2, all 4 question multiple choice. So I guess that makes it possible for younger kids to do as well. However, it is probably fairly difficult. Oh, here, where they give us a nice chart that we could have looked at before explaining. So this is the elementary school kids. They say, can get up to level 3. And I think this is more like an average-ish thing because, there's obviously, I'd say, university students or whatever who maybe can't even pass level 5. And there's the rare prodigy kid who can pass the level 1 in whatever and, get a university degree at age 10 or whatever, right? So these are just the average guidelines, I'd say. So if this is true here and elementary kids can pass up to like the level 3 normally, this might actually be one that we would consider taking in the near future. And it's all multiple choice apparently, so it is something that we could indeed probably study for. Taking a look at this chart here now, it looks like the level 5 is both elementary kids and middle school kids are the main target. And it's pretty much everything that you learn throughout elementary school's social studies. And then level 4, it's the things you learn in social studies and being able to use also, the things you learn in elementary and middle school social studies and being able to, I guess, understand the geography and history of that. And then level 3, and yeah, level 4 already it's saying that it's aimed towards like high school kids as well. So everything from elementary to high school, which is quite a big jump, I think. So I guess it's just a lot of different people taking it. Once you get to level 3, you don't have these elementary kids taking it normally anymore, but it is sort of use the civics part of what you would learn in social studies during middle school, whereas the level 4 was more history and geography. And as I mentioned earlier, uh, social studies eventually splits off into both history and geography and civics as two different categories. And then on pre-level 2, it seems that it is mostly like civics, politics, and economy stuff that you learn in high school. So at this point, they actually at level 3, they've already added university and regular adults taking the test as well. And that continues into pre 2. And by the time you get to 2, they just, say only high school students or university and regular people. So yeah, the at level pre 2, it's still the things that you learn in high school, and it looks like once you get to level 2, um, they'll probably be using actual news, recent events. I guess they have to prepare the test, so maybe not too recent, but being able to understand how these events came to be and the background for them all. And then level 1 is, I guess, a more global and historic view of all the stuff that they did in level 2. So it sounds like it gets pretty tough anyway. We might do some practice questions. It looks like they have some here, but we'll do that in another video if we do. So that was just a quick look at what this test here is for and why I think it is a good benchmark for social studies. That's mainly because the things that you learn, especially for the level 5 and 4, it looks like it's actually the things that you learn in social studies. And then once you get to level 3, I guess you would learn these in social studies as well. Again, I'm gonna have to double check if that's actually if it splits off in high school or middle school, and I'm pretty sure it was high school, but not 100% sure. And then once you get to pre 2, it sounds more like they go into the elective information. So it is less of what everybody's learning and more of what, of very, like, it gets a little bit more specific. And then level 1 and 2, they seem like they're kind of going, they're going away from the general knowledge, I guess, and and actually trying to use that information that you have learned while looking at actual news articles and such. So that was one of them, and I probably spent way too much time just rambling about it, even though I know very little about this one yet. But here's another one. So the history exam, and this image here, it looks like it was made with AI in maybe 2023 or so, maybe 2024. I mean, there's I think AI images, they are improving a lot, as in it gets harder and harder to tell, but this one here looks very AI-esque to me. Uh, but this is not an AI exam. This is a history exam. So let's see what they do on the history exam here. So it looks like the history exam is about history. And so in general, here's the sort of lineup of people who take it. It looks like people under the age of 10 do not often take this history exam. There's a lot of teenagers who do take the exam though, in their tens. So anywhere from 10 to 19, I guess, is the biggest number of people taking the history exam. And the level 5, the youngest person to pass level 5 was 5 years old. The youngest person to pass level 1, and level 1, it looks like they split. So they have world history and Japanese history, I think. So youngest person to pass level 1 is 80. No, not really. It's 12. So, um, yeah. But again, I mean, if the youngest person is 12, then I'd say the test is probably pretty hard at the level 1. So it looks like once you get to level 3, they break it into Japanese history and world history. And the passing rates, actually, the level 5 passing rate, if it's 97.3%, and a 5-year-old can, I keep pressing that, and a 5-year-old can potentially pass it, maybe very well trained 5-year-old. This might be something we could look into as well, the level 5 history exam. I think once we're getting up to the level 3 and you're getting like 60%, and then the level 1 where we're getting to 3629. Wow, the level 2, the Japanese history was a lot higher in passing than the world history. Strange. But what am I trying to say here? So that is, again, 5 levels for the history test with no, sorry, 6 levels. They have a pre-3. So 3 and pre-3, but no pre-2 or pre-1, which is weird. So pre-3 is only Japanese history, it looks like. And then they split the 3, 2, and 1 into 2 tests each. So, I mean, I guess you could count those as different levels, but they're kind of branches of the same level. So maybe that is 6 levels, or maybe that is whatever 6 plus 3, 9 levels is, right? So it looks like level 4. Teens are 11, level 5, 4, 3, or pre-3. So this is another one that we could definitely consider. But again, once you get to the higher levels, I think you quickly hit a wall as a younger kid. So maybe we can consider taking the level 5 and level 4 in this one. All right, one more here is the World Heritage that I mentioned. And the World Heritage one, I have heard that the World Heritage test, the lowest level on this, and this is also 5 levels. It starts at 4, actually, I think, and then goes 3, 2, 1, and then there's Meister, which is like some above level. And oh, it says pre-1 here, so maybe there's actually more levels. Let's take a look quickly. And they won't tell us anything about the test here for some reason. So, oh, here it is. Okay, so what levels do we have? We have 4, 3, 2, pre-1. Pre-1's coming soon. So there has not previously been a pre-1. This is completely new, it looks like, for this test. So that would bring it up to 6 levels. It's probably make a level 5 then for the younger kids as well. And level 1, and then Meister. So let's take a look at how they manage this. So they're saying the dark blue here is the elementary school kids who are taking it. So, and the light blue is middle school kids, and this beige-ish, orange beige color here is high school, and then the darker orange is the people who are actually going to university or whatever for this, or not necessarily for this, but including people doing it for this. And the light blue, green, that kind of like confuses us with these other colors. The color on the right hand side here is just regular people, regular adults. So not students in any regular, normal schooling system. That's what I'm saying. So if we take a look at the breakdown here, it looks like the even level 4 we have mostly high school students and only a few um, elementary school students, even though I heard that elementary school students have taken this here and there. And once we get to level 3, we're getting into the university students as the biggest amount of people. And once you get to level 2, the even high school students almost non-existent. So maybe the World Heritage exam is actually more difficult than I expected. So from the looks of it, the level 4 focuses mostly on um, World Heritage in Japan and general knowledge about World Heritage and English World Heritage. I'm not sure what that is, but they don't do that at the higher levels. Um, whereas the World Heritage, so outside of Japan World Heritage, and more diverse World Heritage is in the higher levels. It gets more questions on that. And again, this is another one that we might do some practice questions on later in a different video, because this video I'm just rambling on about, hey, this is how this test appears to work. And that is that. So here we have how many questions do we have? So on each level, the level 4. So at this point, most of these tests, I'm looking at them to see if my son can pass these tests rather than me specifically taking these tests. Some of these tests I'm going to take with him, maybe, but I think it might get expensive if I were to take all of them. Uh, but I do like to be there, one, for his support, and two, I think if you actually take the test as a parent, you kind of understand a lot better what your child is up against. So again, I'm not going to take all of these, and I'm probably not going to make my son take quite all of these either, but I'm looking at the lower levels for the ones that he could very likely attempt to take here. So again, the level 4. Oh, and they actually have qualification requirements for the higher levels. So you can just jump into level 2 without anything, but to take the pre-1 or the 1, you need the level 2 already. And to take the Meister, you need the level 1. So the time for each test is here. The Meister, you get 120 minutes and only has 3 questions, but all these questions, I guess you have to write like essays on, which sounds pretty rough, actually. Um, whereas the level 1 all the way to level 4, it looks like it's specifically multiple choice questions, and the amount of questions goes up from pre-1 to 1 by a significant amount, and from 4 to 3 just by a little bit. But the time doesn't go up from 4 to 3, which is strange. So it looks like you need 60% to pass all of these over here, and 70% to pass to level 1, if my math is correct. And then the level Meister, you need 12 or more out of 20 points. And I guess that's really how they mark your essay on the subject. And then they have more information down here as well. So what's on the test, basically. So general knowledge about World Heritage things would be here. And then Japanese World Heritage. So 13 general questions, 23 Japanese heritage questions, 13 world heritage questions. And this heritage is like either natural or human developed wonders of the world, basically. It could be Niagara Falls, or it could be Machu Picchu, or whatever, I guess, right? And then we also have one question about other stuff. I don't know what that would be yet. So if we were going to take this, we'd probably have to look it up. I have heard that the level 4 is doable for younger kids, but just based on the information that we saw above, it looks like it might be rather difficult. However, multiple choice, that does make it a lot more doable. 60%, not too high. 60% of multiple choice. If you got really good luck, maybe you could do it if you only knew a certain number of questions. But yeah, this is another one that I think we're going to have to look into in the near future here and figure out more about that. So, here we actually have some data on the people who take the World Heritage Test as well, that I had open for some reason. So it looks like more and more people are taking it each year. The Meister, because you already need like everything to even attempt it, there's not a lot of people taking it. The level 4, 6,000 people are taking it. I guess this is yearly in 2025. And the people who passed, it's actually not a bad passing rate for most of these. I would like to see the lowest level a little bit higher, actually, because it is the lowest level, and getting into these sorts of tests, especially if you want younger kids to take them, you should probably have like a at least high 80s or 90s percentile for the lowest level is how I often view these. And this is that chart, I guess, that we saw earlier, or no, this is a completely different chart. So this is the amount of time, I guess it is self-reported, that people study for each test prior to being able to take it and potentially pass it, I guess. So less than a week. So people, they're not really studying too hard for the level 4. 2 weeks to a month is this orange thing here. So 2 weeks to a month. And I'm assuming that's not like constant study, 2 weeks to a month. I would assume that's like, every day or 2 or 3 or a couple times a week. And then we have 2 to 3 months and 4 months or higher. So the level 1, I think, yeah, you definitely want 4 months or higher for something, anything level 1 in most cases. So I guess this information also kind of looks promising, because the level 4 is something you can do, and people are using the official text mostly to study for it. Mostly teenagers taking the test, it looks like. This is an overall one, I guess. They don't have people under 10 here, it looks like, unless my eyes are deceiving me. So I don't know. Oh, there are people under 10 who are taking it. I guess there aren't very many of them. And that is that test. And there's one other thing that I wanted to mention about this history test. If we go back for a minute, I did purchase some history. Oh, we're seeing through somebody here. Cards for my son to study Japanese history anyway. So we have these cards, the year at the top, and on the back we have information about the history. And I thought these were pretty cool, but we have not yet had time to really get into them so far. So in 752, the giant Buddha statue was completed. So I'm actually not very well versed in history myself, so this is indeed one subject that I could learn with my son. So the final test of those 5 tests that I said I'd mention is the the map and mapology test here. So this test is actually only 2 levels. Most of the ones that we went over just now were 5 or 6 levels, but this one's only 2 levels. It's beginner and advanced. And it's a famous guy. And boom, let's see what we've got here. Okay, so beginner, 60% or more to pass. That's not too bad, but oh, so there are levels depending on your score. It seems that you can receive, and if you take the test, so the basics test and the specialized test is the two that they have. And I guess if you take the specialized test, or the basic test also gives you these points as well, but then I guess you take the specialized test, and depending on your points over, I guess these last forever, a certain period of time. So you'd have to take this test multiple times to get the max points. You get these higher and higher, um, certifications, basically. So they have the level 3, 2, 1, and then they have these like you're a map genius kind of guys up here. But the actual tests themselves, there's only two versions that you take, and these tests are focused much more on like Japanese maps and the like. So where were they? Trying to find. So the information we have on this test, who's taking it, so 60% to pass, and almost 70% of the people are passing um, the entry level test, whereas it looks like the specialized test, far fewer people are passing it, and then the people who are getting significant points to get this level 1, which is 80% or more, is a very small number of the people taking the test, it seems. So that is some interesting information there. So what, oh, I think I went too far here. And we can look at some practice questions later as well. I just want to sort of figure out what this test is about. I think we'd have to look at the practice questions to do this, but I think it is looking at maps and understanding these maps. So let's actually bring up a random question here. So just, I don't know, we'll select again randomly, see what they come up with. So this is this the basic one? Yeah, it's the basic one. So they give us some marks on the map and ask us some questions about these. So I don't know exactly how maps work in other countries, but in Japan we have all these crazy symbols on the maps, and this is not that, by the way. This is something else. So, and all these crazy symbols that you have to learn what they are. Like this one in a circle, I think, is actually a high school rather than the non-high school, which is outside of a circle. Here we go, outside of a circle. And the post office over here, I think, and so on. And this is another one of those things where I did buy some cards that we have only gone over once for what is this, and on the back a detailed explanation as to what it is, what each of these symbols means. So some of them, this looks like the Mozambique flag or something, but this is for a what do you call the caves that you dig for minerals and stuff in? So post office. This one's pretty famous. Everybody knows this, I think. Details about that. The book. This one's probably pretty obvious. And then if I looked at the back and it was like hospital or something, it's a library. So yeah, this one looks very railroady. It's a station, yeah. And so I don't know if that was in camera. Railroady station, book, library, right? And one of like a million different circles. So I don't know. Okay, this is the city ward office, or sorry, the city the city office, um, the one that people go to request documents and stuff. So you know, 3 lines. What does 3 lines mean? We'll talk about the 3 lines in a different video. So these are the 5 tests that I've rambled on about here that I think would basically cover social studies. And you might need, I don't think you necessarily need all 5 of them, but since social studies is really a mixture of, um, yeah, at least in Japan, it would be like Japanese history and geography and the civics around that, as well as world history, geography, and international relations, uh, and then general like maps and history and all that, and, and politics and economy. And if you try and put all of that in, I think it is kind of tough to cover in one test, especially if you try to fit all that within only like 6 or 7 levels. So if anybody out there is like, oh, we're gonna make a new social studies exam, you'll need at least 10 levels for this, I think. You could make it, and if you're like a pre-1, pre-2 or whatever, uh, and then adding, maybe it could be 12, 13, something, maybe like 15 levels. And that would make sense to me with all the things that you might want to cover. So to sort of like integrate all these other tests into it, it would make sense to me. There was also some other certifications that I was looking at. Like there was one that only had a single test, which was like ecology or an eco uh, certification, where it's more about the kinds of things that they have in um, sort of like the SDGs and all that, especially when it comes to the environment. So it's sort of like an environment test, which, kind of falls under social studies as well. But it was a single test, and I didn't really feel that a single test that you take one time and you're done with necessarily allows for the same level up structure as these other tests here. So that's just my take on these tests in general. And please let me know what you think, because this looks like it would be kind of tough to do on paper, actually. Uh, so I think we still have to kind of figure out which of these tests that we will consider taking in the future. For now, um, we will probably actually challenge the flag test, and then use the world geography from here as well, and go with that. So that's actually a big issue that made me want to do this episode in the first place. Rambling on about all these different things is, well, with this test and perhaps with um, even the news test, we would get some world geography, I think. But in social studies, one of the earlier things you would learn is like the map of Japan, the capitals of each prefecture, and some information about each prefecture, understanding the country that you're in this case, and that type of thing. As far as I can see, and we might take the practice tests in a soon to be video, but as far as I can tell, that test or there's that information is not really on any of these tests, even though it's like sort of a staple to the social studies that you would learn in when do you learn it? I don't know. I would expect by mid grade three at the latest, probably. You would probably learn the geography of Japan and some information about each of those locations. So that is the endless ramble about these social studies related tests. Please let me know what you think about them, and if there's actually any social studies test that you know about that I have completely overlooked here, or if you're living in a different country and you have and your country has this really awesome social studies test that we could use for reference to try and tell these people, hey, we need a better social studies test for that's friendly for both kids and adults, that goes from you know knowledge one to knowledge 1,000, basically, in the level up structure. So if you have anything like that for reference, please also let us know in the comments. And remember to like and subscribe. And I think we actually got our first subscriber not long ago. It only took 40 videos, but my videos, they might not be the most refined videos out there, but you know, they there's definitely worse videos on YouTube. I've seen one or two. So, yeah. So, like, subscribe, and level up.